Black history wasn't much in our schools. It was Martin Luther King, the usual. Everybody knows about Martin Luther King. You know about Rosa Parks, and every now and then certain classes would touch on Frederick Douglass. Outside of that, that's it. Nobody talks about Marcus Garvey. Nobody talks about Madam C.J. Walker, the first millionaire black woman. Like nobody doesn't talk about that. There's more to our history than just slavery. That's all we hear, but we don't talk about the Egyptians and how the world was created and how the contributions of black people have made to the world overall, from inventions to businesses to overall communities. We don't ever talk about those. We talk about those three people: Martin, Rosa Parks, Frederick Douglass, every now and then, and that's it.
Yeah, history is something that I did not receive a great education on, K-12. Even I would say in college, my understanding of the history of this nation and international history is extraordinarily incomplete. And when we talk about specifically Black history, I don't ever remember learning specifically Black history. And in fact, I went to a private Christian school, and what I do distinctly remember is having Fox News on in my high school classroom I don't remember having other news channels on. And another thing I distinctly remember in my classroom is learning that the Civil War, it was being emphasized to me that the Civil War was about states' rights predominantly. And so that's my history learning. And yes, I do find myself feeling ill-equipped to recognize and reckon with the history that I'm learning now about the massacre that happened in Tulsa. I was last week years old when I learned about that, reading and watching the 13th documentary and learning about the history of the Nixon administration and the Reagan administration and the war on drugs, and I barely knew anything about that.
I started off in Philadelphia working in AmeriCorps programs, specifically City Year, North Philadelphia, one other person of color on a team of 10. 99% of the students are Black, not Hispanic, not Asian, Black. 99% of these kids are Black, K-8 school. And we're in January, and I bring up Black History Month planning and proposals, and people are asking questions like, when is Black History Month again? The adults on the team who are working in the school. And questions like that arise, and you just saw me chuckle. Like, I can't help but giggle at ignorance, for me, that seems to be at that level.
I mean, there's no question that throughout every stage of my schooling, from preschool literally to my PhD program, I've had majority white teachers, even in primarily Black communities, right? Almost exclusively, except for, I think I had like 1 or 2 Black teachers my whole public education run, right? So not many at all. And same thing with my kids right now, primarily Black and brown community. I think they have just a couple Black teachers in that school. And so yeah, there's no question that overall on an educational level, most literature, they centralize European literature, European history, all these things are what are centered. When they do Black history, it's tokenized and it's in some ways misrepresented, right? So you get you call it the famous four, right? Dr. King and Frederick Douglass and Rosa Parks and Harriet Tubman, or whoever, the four that they want to emphasize, right? But they're told in a way that domesticate their actual legacy, number one, right? So it's not even just bad enough that we don't get a broader range of people, but they domesticate their stories and then try to subsume them somehow into this beautiful story of American exceptionalism where it was all inevitable. Justice and democracy were just an inevitable part of America's ongoing story, when in fact these people were fighting against the way in which America was being America, right? And so we don't even tell honestly we talk about Dr. King and his dream. We don't talk about how very soon after that he said his dream turned into a nightmare. And we don't talk about how he believed that America expressed itself through the big triplets of racism, militarism, and consumerism. And we don't talk about the ways that he was trying to start a poor people's campaign to bring all poor people, Black, brown, Native American, and poor white people that were willing to be in solidarity to change this country. So the way that we educate our people, it distorts Dr. King's image. And so when my kids come home from school, just like I came home from school, I see quickly that they've got this kind of distorted narrative of how these things are being taught in the classroom. And so I have to do my own education. But that was the same thing. I unfortunately didn't get the benefit of getting that much of re-education until much later in life. And so there's a lot of these myths and narratives that kids just take for granted, and I certainly did.
I do think history is extraordinarily important. I think the reason that it is incomplete takes us back to the concept of systemic racism. If it advantages people who make the decisions and who made the decisions a long time ago to not emphasize parts of our history that are ugly, that take some of our heroes and make them problematic, all of that is very messy. And if it advantages those in power in a system to leave those messy parts out, then they're going to be left out. And if we're not ready to reckon with them, then they get glossed over. So history is really difficult to tackle. I mean, it's obviously ongoing. So the longer we go, it's not like our school years are getting longer. It's not like our history classes are going longer. So we do have to start to understand, how do we help students not just memorize facts and dates and mythology about history? How do we help our students dig in and recognize the themes of history, recognize and reckon with our lived history as a nation, and start digging into their own learning and going deeper with certain areas so that they can really understand how it impacts maybe whatever they care about. You know, is it the rise of music? Is it the legislative process? Yeah, I think that we have a long way to go in reckoning with how best systemically to teach history. I think there's some individuals who are doing it amazingly well, but this is another systemic issue. Who are the curriculum companies who are printing the books? What are the standards that every teacher is, being required to teach to? What is the curriculum map that guides their lesson plans? These are all systems that then individuals go and then are enacting. So it's a complex question when it comes to education, but history is a really important part of this moment now because history is being made currently. And it's also about, this history right now is about a lot of history that many of us don't know about. And so that might be why a lot of us are, and when I say us, I mean white people, but I also mean Black men and women who know and have lived these experiences, but they might have been disenfranchised from their own history, and maybe they're only learning it now, and feel that this would have helped them make sense of the world and their own experiences in a more empowering way. So I think history and learning of it and the teaching of it and the grappling with it is hugely important.
We need to talk about the entire Black history. We're gonna have Black history classes or Black History Month. Make sure you teach them the entire history. Make sure the Black kids growing up know that there's more to them than just slavery. There's more to you fighting civil rights. There's Black millionaires out there. There's business owners. There's politicians. Teach them about that. Teach them about the experiences that we have and everything, not just the sad parts. All slavery does when you have those conversations is bring people to tears, people cry, but people feel beneath them. You feel like you're less than. If that's all you learn about your history, that, we must be less than. That's not true. That's only a little part of our history. We need to expand the entire history and teach people. People don't only see themselves from other people that have already came before them. So if I don't see the millionaires, I don't see the politicians, if I don't see the engineers and the doctors who have paved the way, how do I expect to ever be that? If I've never seen it before, what do we see? Athletes? We all want to be football players, basketball players. That's all we see. That's what is glorified. We don't glorify the doctors and the educators. So we need to do a little bit more of that to let the entire community know, one, there's more opportunities out here than just being an athlete. And two, we're contributing to the world in great ways, and we need to make sure we celebrate that.